Watts. Welcome to Hill City Paranormal.
This is Woody Watts with Hill City Paranormal. I have a very special guest with me today. Someone that I am so glad we have, our paths have crossed. And we're going to get more into that towards the end of the interview. But I want to welcome Jared, one of my favorite writers out there. Jared, thank you so much for finally connecting with me.
Well, it's my pleasure. It feels good to finally talk to you.
Well, Jared, let everybody know. Okay, so not only do you fill us in, because you write some amazing, scary short stories, but you also own a publishing company and you've written several books, and we're actually working on one ourselves. So tell everyone kind of what got you started writing books, spooky books, and your publishing company.
So it's, I've always enjoyed writing ever since I was in high school. I was in creative writing classes and even into college. Any creating writing class I could get into, I would do. It's funny though, when I was younger, I never looked at myself or thought about becoming a writer. It was just kind of a hobby back then. But it's weird because even in high school, I was writing like these history type books, like books on battles of Vietnam and World War II and things like that. I was even drawing my own book covers and things like that. And so I kind of got out of it for quite a few years. Never in my life thought of myself as a spooky story writer or a horror writer. And then, funny enough, in 2017, my wife and my kids and I were sitting on our screen porch, and it was in the fall. My daughter was probably 12 at the time, and we, for some reason, we just got on the topic of spooky stories, and I thought, maybe I could write a spooky story or something like that. And then I came up with all these excuses of why I probably couldn't and all this kind of stuff. And my daughter finally said, you know what, Dad, why don't you just do it? And that kind of sparked something in me. And so probably within 2 minutes of her saying that, I grabbed a notepad and started writing a story. And it was actually the story of the first story in my Wicked Harvest book called Stone Hollow. That's a subdivision that I live in. And I started writing the story about this guy who, moves into the subdivision, and his neighbor's telling this story about this creature that's been living in this subdivision, for the last 200 years, and he doesn't believe them, and all this kind of crazy stuff happens. So, and then all of a sudden, like that story sparked another 9 stories that then I put into a book. It's Wicked Harvest, Michigan Monsters and Macabre, and it's all about Michigan towns. Lots of different stories. All of them are fictional, of course, but I put the towns in there and a little bit of history about some of the towns just to kind of, I'm born and raised in Michigan, so I kind of wanted to pay homage to the state and to the wonderful towns. So that's how I got kind of started. Before that, I wrote a crime prevention book. I used to be in criminal justice. That was my career for about the last 20 years. So I wrote a book about crime prevention and personal security. I wrote kind of a few short stories. I wrote a story about my fun and exciting times in Marine Corps boot camp, which most people don't think of that as fun and exciting times, but there was a lot of funny moments in there, and I thought it'd be kind of cool to write that down and publish it as a book. So I actually have 2 publishing companies. One is called Last Leaf Publishing, and that's what I publish a lot of my short stories and the non-spooky stuff out of. And then I have Wicked Harvest Books, which is kind of a publishing company that I will be publishing, more spooky stories and more, I really don't like to call them horror stories because, the majority of the stories that I write, there's not a lot of, blood and guts and that kind of thing. It's more a little suspenseful, little twist at the end kind of thing. So
I think they are absolutely perfect. See, that was one of the things when I picked up specifically your Wicked Harvest, Michigan Monsters and Macabre. When I picked that up, it reminded me of Tales from the Crypt, but not gore, without the gore, and Creep Show and Twilight Zone. Each one was its own little story, and it had this universe feel to it, and I absolutely loved it. Like I couldn't put the thing down, and so I was so excited when we finally connected, because this tone I love, so because like you said, like it's you wouldn't classify it as horror necessarily, but spooky. It's suspenseful.
Right, and it's funny you say that, because I've growing up, I was a huge fan of watching the Twilight Zone, watching Creep Show and Tales from the Crypt and that kind of thing. I was never, really into the big horror movies. I kind of am a little bit more now, but back then. So yeah, I was all, the Twilight Zone was great. I loved each episode and how different they were. And Rod Serling was just a genius coming up with all of those different stories. So
he's the master. So how do you approach? All right, so that got you started, but how do you approach each individual story? Are you walking around making mental notes through the day now, or like when you sit down to write, how do you? Because they are so well crafted, in my opinion. Like when you read them, they take place in this world. How do you approach each one?
I get my ideas from a lot of different places, and I have notepads scattered everywhere. I have them in my car, in my bathroom, my bedroom, and anytime I get an idea for something, I have to write it down, because otherwise I'll forget. So, and a lot of times with writing, there are times where I'll get an idea in my head and I'll sit at the computer and I just start typing away. And the next thing I know, I've got, 5 or 6 pages. But then, there are other stories too that are kind of a struggle, and I have to really think about, what this character is going to do or what's taking place. So it's weird, because a lot of times once I get an idea in my head, I somehow my mind works to where I'm kind of watching a movie in my head and just typing out what I'm seeing. So that's how a lot of these stories come about, is that I watch the movie in my head and I think, oh, that was pretty good. So let's write that down and see if we can make a story out of it.
Oh, see, that is awesome, Jared. We are a lot alike. I love that. So, all right. So what are some of your favorite stories that you've written that you sat down and you're like, hey, I like that movie? Like, what are a few that you've come up with that you were at the end, not necessarily surprised, but you're like, yeah, that's a good one?
Well, the first one that I wrote, the Stone Hollow one, I really, for some reason, I love that. I love that story. I love how it plays out. And in my head, the movie was great. There's definitely a surprise and a twist at the end. So another one that I wrote for the book, it was called Battle Alley, and there's actually a real battle alley in Holly, Michigan, and it's just a little town, and it got its name back in the 1800s. I guess it was a big train station hub, and just thousands of people stopped at this depot. And one year the circus came through, and they stopped it in Holly, and the circus. Everybody at the circus got off the train. They went into town. Everybody started drinking. And in this little alleyway, there was a fight between the circus folk and the townsfolk. And so it basically got named Battle Alley. So I took that idea, and in the story that I wrote, there's kind of a duel back in the 1800s between two people. And, at the end, there's definitely a surprise, something that, most people wouldn't expect. So that's another favorite one of mine. I think that would be, probably a great movie at some point. So
now, what do people think that know you and live in your area and they've read your book or heard about your book, what do they think about these stories taking place in their, in their neighborhood or in their town?
I've had some good responses. People in my subdivision think it's really cool that I mentioned the subdivision and I kind of talk about some of the things here in the town that I live in and things like that. So, I think they feel a little bit of a nice connection to it, even if it's not directly towards them. Now, in a lot of the stories that I write, I'll put people in there that are family and friends, even without them knowing it. And sometimes I'll change the name. There's, stories that I'm working on where, my uncle is in there, my parents are in there, but it may not be their name, but it's definitely like their mannerisms or their character. And like, they are the people that I envision in these stories. And I'll hide like little, I guess they call them, Easter eggs in a lot of the stories, like a certain date might be like, the same date as my wife's birthday or my kid's birthday or something like that. So it's kind of nice to do that, just so it's kind of a cool thing for them and for me as well.
Now, have you had any paranormal experiences or any like sightings or any otherworldly experiences that you could pull from for this? Or are you literally just pulling everything from your imagination and then taking notes?
No, I mean, I've had, unfortunately, I've never had any kind of a Bigfoot sighting or aliens or UFOs that I know of. I've definitely had a lot of ghosts, that kind of paranormal experience. The one that I can remember when I was 16 years old, staying at a friend's house, his parents were gone. And I was sleeping in the guest room. And back then, this was back in the late 80s, they had a waterbed, of all things. And I was, sleeping on the waterbed and it was morning and I woke up and he had told me that, his house was haunted and that kind of thing. And I was a pretty fair skeptic back then. But there were, little things that would happen in his house that were kind of questionable. But so that morning I woke up and I had thought that my friend came in and sat on the bed because I could feel the water moving. And I looked down by my feet and you could clearly see the imprint of somebody sitting there. So I kind of freaked out a little bit and I called my friend's name and I yelled it several times and, he showed up and he asked me what was going on. And I said, hey, I think there was, somebody sitting on the bed, like a ghost or something. And he just says, yeah, that happens a lot. Do you want some breakfast? And so, I mean, to him, it was like just a normal thing. But for me, that was probably one of my first, experiences. And, the second one that sticks out is, my wife and I had just gone up to Traverse City, Michigan, a couple of years ago, and we visited the insane asylum that had been converted into apartments and condos, and the basement was converted into retail shops. And the place was absolutely gorgeous, great place to visit. And some of the buildings are still abandoned or, close to being renovated, and they give like these ghost tours. And so my wife and I went on one, and she's a pretty good photographer. She loves taking pictures, and so she, snapped pictures all over the place, and she kind of went on her own. And we kind of found out later on, looking through the pictures, that there was a lot of like a shadow person that was kind of following her around. Nothing malevolent, nothing, evil feeling or anything like that. She kind of felt like that it was actually a good thing. Like maybe it was an old patient that kind of followed her around just to kind of see, what was going on. But looking at those pictures, it's pretty cool. And so, her and I have experienced a lot of things. That we've had orbs in the house during like family gatherings and things like that. So, and maybe it's because we watch a ton of paranormal shows.
That'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we kind of invite some of that stuff in, but we love that. We love going to different towns and going on ghost tours and learning the history of towns and seeing if we can experience something like that. So some of the experiences, I'll take some of the ideas or some of the things that have happened to me, and I'll think, maybe I can put this into a story and see how it pans out. And sometimes it's worked pretty well.
Nice. Well, all right. So I don't want to give too much away, but it is very exciting to me what we're working on. Well, and I'll have to say this, Jared has done most of all the work on this. I was reading your book and we just got to talking, and it kind of naturally segued to, hey, let's work on something together. And that ended up being a book that you were working on, and you actually just sent me the final draft, I believe, night before last. So kind of give everybody an idea of what you've been working on with Hill City Paranormal.
So yeah, the book that we're working on is it's basically 10 short spooky stories. Each story is only maybe 4 to 6 pages long, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun for people to read. All of the stories take place in Virginia. All of the stories, it runs the gamut from a story about Bigfoot, a story about aliens, UFOs, witches, ghosts. I mean, you name it. There's a lot of different things in there, and I think it'll be a really great read for people. It's the stories are very easy to read. You could even read them to your kids. Hopefully not late at night, but nothing's going to scare them too bad. Nothing's going to, there's no blood, guts, and gore and that kind of thing. I think even younger kids could read it, but I think it's going to be a great thing, and I'm really excited to be a part of it. And I just think it's going to be awesome.
Well, you've done a great job. I was reading the stories, and as the process went along, Jared would, he would send me a story. He'd write a story, send it to me, and every single one of them I love. And it's after you read it, it's a lot like what you were talking about. You instantly see it playing out in your head like a movie. And there's not one bit in there that I'm like, oh, that doesn't, like, every single one of them you nailed. And I absolutely love. So I cannot wait for people to have this in their hand and reading it, and actually fairly soon, right? We should be in about another month or two, right?
Yeah, I would say that definitely by either the end of May, June at the latest. But we're just finalizing a few things, and then it's just a matter of getting it published and getting it out there. So
well. Besides Hill City Paranormal and the book that actually I have in hand right now that I'm looking at from Wicked Harvest, what else do you have in the works that you're excited about, that you have coming up, and what kind of stories do you have brewing in your head right now?
Well, it's a fortunate thing and it's an unfortunate thing. I've got so many story ideas and so many things that I've started, but the great thing is that I started a story probably about 6 or 7 years ago, and just kind of worked on it here and there. And I finally last week finished it, and it's actually a novel. It's over 45,000 words, and it's kind of like it's a ghost type story. I think it'll be a great book when it's done. And then I actually finished a story. It's a World War II story, and it's actually about my grandfather. Him and his cousin were served during World War II, and unfortunately he passed away in the 80s. But I thought, what a great way to honor his memory is to write a story. It's a fictional story, but it has like his real name and like some of the real things that he did, and that kind of thing. So I'm hoping to get that published as well, and then. I'm working on just tons of stuff. I'm working on like the new stories for Wicked Harvest 2, which hopefully will be published probably next year. So I just, I've got so many things going. Like I don't I don't even know where to begin and where to stop. And it a lot of times, it's I'll be talking to my wife and we'll be having like a serious conversation, and I have to stop her because I got this idea in my head about a story. So,
same.
But she's very supportive, and I love her for that. She's awesome. She even reads a lot of the stories that I write, and says, hey, I think you should change this or do this, or hey, you spelled this completely wrong. And so she's kind of like my first editor before I send stuff to my actual editor.
Yeah.
So
well, that is fantastic. And so and I gotta ask, has this whole quarantine and Corona and COVID-19, has that altered like any of your stories or altered any of your themes that you were working on? Like all of a sudden, are you doing nothing but zombies now because of this?
I did get one story for the book that we're working on, about the zombie one that kind of helped. The fact that I got to stay home from work for a few weeks definitely helped. I was able to write quite a bit. Luckily, I didn't get writer's block or anything like that, so I was able to accomplish quite a bit. So, but I can definitely see, when I'm on Facebook with other writing groups and stuff, a lot of people have gotten ideas from this quarantine, and I'm sure that probably within the next couple of months to a year, you'll see a lot of books and a lot of stories out there about the COVID zombies or something like that.
Yeah. We'll jump on that first though, right? I loved that the story that you mentioned, by the way. That's one of my favorites. The style, everything. So, well, Jared, I am so glad that we finally got to talk, and I want everyone to get this book and read it. So if you could you please tell everyone where to find it, how to contact you, and how to reach you for more of these wonderful stories?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a bunch of different websites, lastleafpublishing.com, wickedharvestbooks.com, and then jaredsmelker.com. I'm on Instagram. It's author Smelker. And then I'm on Facebook. Either my name, Jared Smelker, or Wicked Harvest Books is on Facebook as well. You can get any of my stories that I've published in books on Amazon. So I'm trying to be good at the social media. I try to get on there as much as I can. I have a couple of blogs, like the Wicked Harvest blog. I put on there a lot of personal ghost experiences that I've had. Anytime we take a ghost tour, I'll put a blog on there about that kind of thing. So
that's awesome, man. Well, Jared, thank you so much. And I cannot wait for people to get a copy of Tales from the Beyond Series 1, a collaboration between Wicked Harvest and Hill City Paranormal. So, Jared, thank you so much for talking with me today, and I know we will talk again soon.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
Be sure to check out our website at hillcityparanormal.com and call our haunted hotline at 434-381-0242 with your spooky tale. Thank you for listening.